What's up, everyone? It is July 16th, and welcome back to this, the 79th edition of the Superstream, and a very special one at that. In today's video, we'll be discussing the numerology of the shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania this past weekend, where a gunman and rally attendee were reportedly killed after an attempted assassination of Donald Trump, the former president and 2024 Republican nominee. Now, the most frequent criticism I get when it comes to my work is that I'm only decoding things after they happen. This is, of course, not true, as my regular viewers will tell you, as I've called many sports championships ahead of time, and I'm always picking up on themes that wind up pointing to future news stories. Well, hopefully that short-sighted criticism can be put to bed after this weekend. Over a week ago, in early July, I uploaded this video to my Rumble page. And in this hour-long presentation, fellow decoder Cody and I explain why the Republican convention is in Milwaukee this year and how it's got everything to do with the shooting of John F. Kennedy. And for the entire hour, we discussed the major assassination riddle for Donald Trump in the time surrounding the convention. This was a video that we had streamed live on Cody's channel a day before. Now, I would never make a thumbnail with bullet holes next to the president if I didn't know there was something significant brewing. And this isn't the type of thing you mess with, particularly when the RNC is in your hometown, like it is with me in Milwaukee. But what are the odds that the very last public appearance Trump made before this convention, the very day before he arrives in Milwaukee, that he's fired at during a campaign rally? And not only are the odds astronomically slim, but the shooting on Saturday, of course, just happened to transpire in a way that you couldn't really see Trump get shot, as he just so happened to be directing the audience's attention away from the stage when the shots rang out. So if this doesn't prove that your federal government is scripting the news, it's hard to know what will. So if you want to learn why this all happened here in July of 2024, check out that video that we already made, linked below down in the description. These mainstream media tricks of the last century have essentially been solved, and the public no longer needs to live under their illusions. So in this video, we're going to look at why it happened on the date it did, and talk about some related news and music releases from this past week. Check the chapters down below if you're watching this archived to jump to a particular story, but you're really going to want to watch this whole entire decode, as this is all pointing to a bread and circuses riddle that I'll be exploring. This is kind of a new riddle that came to light over the past couple days that I think does a good job of explaining why Trump, the first attempt on Trump's life was attempted in Las Vegas, Nevada. And there's been a lot of Las Vegas themes in the news lately. And, of course, Las Vegas, the city that provides the most bread and circuses to the American citizens. Now, looking back at this whole JFK riddle, of course, John F. Kennedy was assassinated in the city of Dallas. And right before this convention in the city of Milwaukee, the Milwaukee Brewers put a pitcher named Dallas Keuchel on the mound, July 13th, the same date as the shooting. And then the very next day, they released this guy named Dallas. So the world of sports is connected to all of this. But this wasn't the only Dallas riddle on this date. We're going to look a lot throughout this video at Eminem's recent record, which came out one day before the shooting. On that album, Eminem has a hidden track called Kyrie and Luka. These are two NBA players for the Dallas Mavericks. And then we're also going to look at a riddle connecting Chad Gable of the WWE, who was mock assassinated on television a couple weeks ago. Well, on last night's episode of Raw, he confronted Bo Dallas, the wrestler that's been haunting him for the last month. And in this episode, Chad Gable aligned himself with two brothers named Julius and Brutus. Julius Caesar, killed by Marcus Brutus in the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire is credited with inventing the circus. And the circus is what gave birth to professional wrestling back in the early 20th century. So all of this came together a little bit too well over the past weekend. So let's look at the numbers associated with this event and talk about why it all played out on July 13th. So thanks to everybody for joining. And what up, bro, in the chat? Good to see you there. So this is all about the bread and circuses. And we're going to talk about how this connects to the book of Revelation, as this is a revelatory time in America where a lot of secrets are starting to come out. And a lot of those secrets learned through videos like this, where we show the length of lies that people will go to placate the masses. A lot of people associate Donald Trump with the beast or the Antichrist, and the book of Revelation is a focus of my channel when it comes to the language of numerology. There's a particularly relevant verse of Revelation, Revelation 13:3, which states this: "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." This is how it's phrased in the King James Version of the Bible, which is the version that I'm always talking about in my work, as this is the Bible that's used in Freemasonry, the King James Version published in 1611. Now, on this channel, we of course take a look at the language of Gematria, the ancient number lettering system that places a numeric value to every letter in the alphabet. It's a very simple language that maintains the alphabetic order and the rules of numerology. We can also extend these methods, mirroring the ancient Hebrew and Greek charts with the standard and Latin methods, which are of supreme significance, as we'll see in this video. So in the alphabetic order, just using the standard cipher 1 through 26, this verse of Revelation, when written out, sums to 1,086. When you include Revelation 13:3, it also equals 1860. Why is this significant to this past weekend? On July 13th, the date of the incident, Thomas Matthew Crooks, the reported shooter, was exactly 1,086 weeks old. In Sumerian Gematria, which is the alphabetic order times 6, Jesus the Messiah sums to 1,086. And I'll say it again, as I do in most of my videos, Donald Trump, the savior of the right, so many people see this guy as a Jesus figure. And that only amplified this past weekend after surviving this assassination attempt. But look at the numbers in the verse. 133, Revelation 13:3. On the first day of the convention last night, Trump named his vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, whose full name, James David Vance, equals 133 and 1,033 in standard. In the reverse alphabetic order, President and Slim Shady equal 133. And one day before the president was shot, Slim Shady releases a record called The Death of Slim Shady, which features Slim in a body bag, which equals 133. This was the first time that someone's tried to shoot President Trump since 2016, when it happened in the city of Las Vegas, Nevada. And in ordinal, Las Vegas, Nevada equals 133, the home of most of the bread and circus here in America. In ancient Hebrew Gematria, Las Vegas, Nevada sums to 223. This is a significant number to the Skull and Crossbones Secret Society at Yale University. Consider how Las Vegas is home to the Raiders, who have a very similar logo to the skull and crossbones with the head and the two swords crossed behind it. Yale University, home to the Order 322, turned 322 years old in the year 2023. Skull and crossbones summing to 223 ordinal. And this is the primary theme that's been running for the past year. Anyone who's seen any of my videos will know this. And think about it, right? First, Donald Trump defeats Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor who's a graduate of Yale University. So he leaves the picture, and in comes Vivek Ramaswamy, another graduate of Yale University, who then becomes a staunch Trump supporter. And after he defeats him, now we get J.D. Vance as Trump's vice presidential pick. And he is yet another graduate of Yale University. J.D. Vance rose to fame after writing a book called Hillbilly Elegy back in 2016 that was turned into a film. In the reverse alphabetic order, that book title equals 223. Now, just a couple months ago, it was announced that WWE, the king of scripted entertainment and sports here in America, will be hosting WrestleMania for the first time. That will be WrestleMania 41, an event which has Gematria of 1322. This will be the 41st WrestleMania, which matches the Gematria of Las Vegas with the S exception, 41. Now, in reduction, without the S exception, Las Vegas equals 23. And this connects Donald Trump to pro wrestling, because in reduction, Donald also equals 23. And at WrestleMania 23, Donald Trump squared off against Vince McMahon in what was dubbed the Battle of the Billionaires. So Trump has long been participating in these bread and circuses rituals. Again, pro wrestling first started in carnivals and circuses. When it comes to Las Vegas, there's a false duopoly that's ruling the city. You have only two corporations that own almost every single large casino on the Strip, and now much of downtown as well. These two companies are MGM Resorts and Caesars Entertainment. Now again, Julius Caesar was essentially the first assassination riddle. And for a long time, Donald Trump has been associated with Caesar. In fact, just today I saw a new article talking about Julius Caesar, Donald Trump, and the Mighty Martyrs. Back in 2017, there was a play where Donald Trump was stabbed on stage in a Julius Caesar type riddle. So this points us to Las Vegas, of course, the home of the bread and circuses. Later in this video, we're going to do a deep dive into how this all connects to the Hunger Games. Because in the Hunger Games, the dystopian nation that's the host of the film is called Panem. And Panem is Latin for bread. Panem et circenses, which is bread and circuses in Latin. Give them bread and circuses, and they will never revolt. This Roman theology now playing out as we witness what seems to be the fall of the United States. Back on June 20th, earlier this year, the star of the Hunger Games, Jennifer Lawrence, released a film called Bread and Roses. Now, this is a 2023 film. However, it was just recently released to Apple Plus TV on June 21st. Actually, there's a little bit of discrepancy here because this page, IMDb, says it was released on June 14th, which just happens to be the birthday of Donald Trump. But what really stands out about this date, June 21st of 2024, is that this is just one day after the death of Donald Sutherland, who played President Snow in the Hunger Games series. Dead on June 20th at the age of 88 in Trump's home state of Florida. And of course, this man named Donald, his death completely numerically synced to Donald Trump. So we'll look at that in a little bit. But first, let's talk about how Trump is connected to Vegas. Now, in 2016, a man allegedly tried to steal a gun from a security guard and shoot Donald Trump, but failed miserably. This happened at the Treasure Island Casino and Resort, in a theater called Mystery, or Mystère in French, which is a Cirque du Soleil theater. Cirque du Soleil means Circus of the Sun. So this was our first clue of the bread and circus riddle involved with this. The Treasure Island Hotel is owned and operated by a man named Phil Ruffin. Phil Ruffin just happens to be a business partner of Donald Trump. In fact, these two men co-owned the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, which opened up back in 2008. The Trump International Hotel had groundbreaking on the date July 12th. July 12th is the same date that many people believe Julius Caesar was born back in 100 BC. On the same date that Trump was shot at, we learned that fitness guru Richard Simmons died, and Richard Simmons was also born on July 12th. This date can be written 7/12 or 12/7. And when you use the ampersand, look at the gematria of bread and circuses. Both 712 and 127. We'll look more at this in a little bit. But also consider how Phil Ruffin, Donald Trump's business partner, also owns a hotel called Circus. So not only does he own the theater that Cirque du Soleil performs at, but he also owns Circus. And of course, the circus goes back to Roman Empire times and the fall of the Roman Republic, with the rise of the Roman Empire often credited to Julius Caesar. And this brings us back to professional wrestling, because back at WrestleMania, the nearly 4-year reign of a wrestler named Roman Reigns ended. And Roman Reigns' merchandise contains this phrase, the Roman Empire. Donald's business partner, Phil Ruffin, has gematria of 119 in the alphabetic order. This matches the Latin value of the name Donald. The word circuses also sums to 119. And when the Cirque du Soleil Theater at his Treasure Island resort opened up, notice how Phil Ruffin was 9 months and 11 days after his birthday. 9 months and 11 days is also 286 days. This is the reverse gematria of bread and circuses. 286 is an important number to another city which has a lot of pageantry and bread and circuses, another significant tourist destination for partiers in the United States. New Orleans, Louisiana, New Orleans, and Orleans all have gematria of 286. And this brings us to another riddle connecting Vegas to the NFL. The last Super Bowl was in Las Vegas. The next Super Bowl will be at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans. The National Football League, this is a sport of 22 players on the field. 22, the number that connects National Football League to Donald John Trump. Skull and Bones and the Brotherhood of Death, all 202, 220. The death of Slim Shady, as we'll discuss, 202 like Circus. Also the year 1984, 220. That's the year that J.D. Vance was born. We'll talk more about that. This past Super Bowl, held in Las Vegas, home of the bread and circus in America, featured two teams that have Gematria of 122. Both San Francisco, which is a team that's from the 122nd Meridian, and Kansas City, both having matching 122 Gematria with National Football League. Well, 122 is also the Gematria of bread and circus. This bread and circus ritual on Saturday fell 122 days after Phil Ruffin's birthday. In fact, the first Trump assassination attempt was 122 days before the anniversary of the Circus Hotel, which again is owned by this guy, Phil Ruffin. 122 minutes, by the way, this is also 2 hours and 2 minutes, which is a number connecting to Skull and Bones and all of this. So all of this is connected. In the reverse order, bread and circus equals 256. That stands out because Trump was reportedly shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, which equals 256. And this is being stamped as a failure of the Secret Service, which is run by a female, Kimberly Cheadle, whose name equals 256. Assassination of Donald Trump equals 256 in Latin. And this chaos all unfolded during Brown Lunation 1256, which has this 256 Gematria, like bread and circus. In the Latin cipher, with the ampersand, bread and circuses equals 572. Measuring from the opening date of the Circus Casino to the founding date of the Circus of the Sun, Cirque du Soleil, is 5,720 days. Now, this has to be a coincidence, right? Well, check this out. If you instead measure from the opening of Circus to the failed Trump assassination attempt at a Cirque du Soleil theater in Las Vegas, it was exactly 572 months later. This is a number connected to the Skull and Bones Society. Skull and Bones equals 572. When Trump's hotel in Las Vegas opened up, Donald was 22,572 days old. When the attempt on his life was made in Las Vegas, Trump was 25,572 days old. Bread and circuses, Skull and Bones, 572. This attempt in Las Vegas was 3,001 days after the Trump hotel in the city opened. And this stood out because when Trump started running for president in 2015, it was on the date June 16th, which was exactly 31 years after the founding of Cirque du Soleil. Donald Trump was born on a date with numerology of 31. Just add the digits in his birthday together. 31. In reverse reduction, Eminem sums to 31. And this brings us to the next big part of this riddle. The fact that Eminem released a record called The Death of Slim Shady on July 12th, just one day before the event in Butler, Pennsylvania. The 31st prime number is 127, and we talked about this number earlier. Bread and circuses with the ampersand, 127 and 712. Cirque du Soleil means sun circus in English. Sun circus also equals 127. In reverse, bread and circuses equals 224. And this reflects the release date of this record, July 12th of 2024. The same digits found in bread and circuses. When Circus opened in Las Vegas, that was 127 days after Trump's birthday. Roman Empire in the alphabetic order equals 127. And in the Hunger Games, the president, Coriolanus Snow, the name Coriolanus equals 127. This opening date of October 18th also connects to Eminem because he has birth numerology of 118, which has these same three digits. When Cirque du Soleil opened in 1984, Eminem was exactly 11 years and 8 months old. This also makes me think of Hunger Games. Hunger Games summing to 118. The star of the Hunger Games, Jennifer Schrader Lawrence, also has this 118. October 18th is also the date that Mike Tyson's boxing license was reinstated after he bit off Evander Holyfield's ear. We'll come back to Mike Tyson in a second. Circus opened 4 months and 4 days after Donald Trump's birthday. And likewise, including the end date, Eminem was born 4 months and 4 days after his birthday as well. In reverse reduction, Circus equals 44. So does Eminem's hometown, Detroit, and Michigan, both 44. When Donald Trump participated in the pro wrestling circus at WrestleMania, that was in Detroit, Michigan, Eminem's hometown. And now this week, we have the Republican convention in Wisconsin, which equals 44 reduction. 44 BC is the year that Caesar was assassinated in ancient Rome. The word kill equals 44 in the alphabetic order. Cirque du Soleil was founded on a date with a life lesson number of 44. And then Trump was reportedly shot exactly 40 years and 4 weeks later on a date with numerology of 44. The state of Pennsylvania has Gematria of 1406. These are the digits found in Trump's birthday. 14/6 of 1946. 146, huge Trump numbers. In the alphabetic order, both Circus and bread and circuses equal 146. Rapper Eminem was born 1,460 days after the opening of Circus. The name Jesus Christ also equals 146. This means it also equals 290 in reverse caps. Circus, and bread and circuses also 290. Donald Trump, born on the date of a lunar eclipse. During brown lunation, 290. Like the name Christ, 290. This number 146 also connects Donald Trump to Mike Tyson. Back in 1997, Mike Tyson bit off the ear of Evander Holyfield during one of the most anticipated boxing bouts of all time. In fact, I was at a house that was watching the fight on that night. Well, notice how Donald Trump was born exactly 1,046 weeks before Mike Tyson. This is also 7,322 days. So you have the 322 there. Mike Tyson was 11,322 days old when he bit Evander's ear. And Evander Holyfield ended up with an identical injury to Donald Trump. Just the very tip of the ear, no longer there. Trump shot in Pennsylvania, which has the same digits found, measuring to Tyson's birthday. All right, so next up, I want to talk a lot about the number 119. Now, obviously, the biggest terror attack in American history was on 9/11. And you're going to see how these digits were coded into the assassination attempt. In fact, this attempt occurred at 6:11 p.m. local time. 611, which is the number 119 flipped upside down. So Eminem released a record back in the year 2020. And on that record, just one day before its release, he uploaded a music video. And in this song called Darkness, the video portrays the Las Vegas shooter carrying out his attack on a concert venue in Las Vegas there. Now, I've actually done some work explaining how this is all connected to Donald Trump and the JFK code. Real quick. Donald Trump, the beast of revelation, as discussed at the top of the video. If he becomes the 47th president, and remember, beast equals 47, Trump equals 47, so does president, 47. If Trump becomes the 47th president, it'll be exactly 666 months after the moon landing. NASA's full name, fake moon landing, and Apollo, all with 666 gematria like Kennedy. Donald Trump's full name equals 1969, the year of the moon landing. The owner of the WWE, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, his full name equals 666. He turned 6,666 days old the day after Kennedy was shot. The Las Vegas shooting with Stephen Paddock, whose name equals 60 and 66, that shooting was 666 lunar phases after the Kennedy assassination. Kennedy shot from a high-rise building, Stephen Paddock raining bullets down from a high-rise building. Earlier this year, Vince McMahon was expelled from the WWE in a sex trafficking story with a woman named Janelle, and Janelle has matching 666 gematria with sex trafficking. That news story broke 60 years and 66 days after the JFK assassination. And in that report, they also implicated a wrestler named Brock Lesnar, whose nickname is The Beast. And look at Lesnar's age on the date of this story, 16,999 days. Are you kidding me? This is such a joke. So back to Eminem, who made a video about this shooting. Now, that record that he released in 2020 was released on the date 17/1. 17/1. Well, when Trump was shot, it was the date leaving 171 days in the year. The 171st prime number is 1019, which has that 119 code. This record was called Music to be Murdered by Eminem, which sums to 119. And then a day before the attempt on Trump last weekend, The Death of Slim Shady, Coup de Grace, was released. That's the full name of the record. And it has gematria of 1019, connecting to this 171. The music video in 2020 was released 119 weeks after the Vegas shooting. In Latin, both Eminem and Donald equals 119. Eminem, a rapper who's long been outspoken against Trump. This music video was released on January 16th, or 116. The first attempt on Trump was carried out by a guy called Michael Stephen Sanford, whose name equals 116. That was at a Sun Circus Theater, 116. The phrase attempted assassination equals 1016, and assassination equals 611, like Brotherhood of Death 611. Trump was shot at the Butler Farm, which equals 116, at 6:11 p.m. And that attempt was a span of 116 days before Election Day. Eminem was born during Brown Lunation 616. Every new moon since 1923 has been numbered. JFK and ritual sacrifice both equal 616. This video he released was released during Brown Lunation 1200. And when you write out Donald Trump assassination, it equals 1200. The 116th prime number is 641. Trump was shot 6 years and 41 weeks after the Las Vegas shooting. Notice how this gematria is found in both the Hunger Games and Cirque du Soleil. Eminem's Darkness video was released 1,307 days after the rally incident in Las Vegas, where Trump was rushed off stage. 1307. Just like the date Trump was shot this weekend, the 13th of July, 1307. 2 days later, he named Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his VP candidate. Ohio and J.D. Vance both 137. Like two circuses, 137. But the real riddle here is that the attempt on Trump's life this weekend was 4 years, 180 days after Eminem's video about the Vegas shooting. 418 is the Latin value of coup de grace, which is, again, the subtitle for Eminem's new album. And coup de grace is a death blow or death shot administered to the end of suffering of the mortally wounded. However, this mortal wound healed, and the world is in wonder. This is also 1,641 days, which provides an interesting prime number connection with Donald Trump and Cirque du Soleil. When Cirque du Soleil was founded, notice how Trump was 38 years and 3 days old. 383 is the 76th prime number. The name of the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, has matching 76 gematria with Donald John Trump and Skull and Bones. In the Satanic cipher, both Bread and Circuses and Jesus the Messiah also equals 706. Eminem's record came out 38 weeks and 3 days after his birthday. Looking back at Trump's candidacy in 2015 when it was first announced, June 16th or 6/16, 1 day later, we had a church shooting in Charleston, South Carolina on the date 6/17. Notice how in Latin gematria, bread and circuses, without the ampersand, using the word and, bread and circuses equals 6/17. And think about the symbolism here. 1 day after Trump announces his candidacy, Donald Trump portrayed as a racist, a divider, someone who's tearing the country apart. And the very next day, we get a mass shooting at a church that appears to have been racially motivated, which led to a lot more division in this country. The name of the shooter this weekend, Thomas Matthew Crooks, his name sums to 1706. Donald J. Trump, 176 reverse. Like bread and circuses, this shooting on the 17th of June, 1706. Trump fired at 176 days after the anniversary of Inauguration Day. But check out the gematria of Marcus Brutus, the man who stabbed Caesar. 176 and 1076, syncing up with both Trump and his shooter. What a joke, like I said. It just keeps going. And what about the name of the shooter in Charleston? Dylan Storm Roof. Well, then we get Thomas Crooks, who was killed on the roof. Roof, with matching 186 gematria with assassination. (186), connecting us back to the gematria of Revelation 13:3. 1086, matching the age of the shooter on the date of the incident. And not only does Jesus the Messiah equal 1086, so is the Jesuit order. So is Circus of the Sun 1086. And think about the Secret Service, who was blamed for this incident. The Secret Service was founded on the 186th day of the year, when Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear. That was on the date leaving 186 days on the calendar. But a huge reason that the number 186 is so important is because this is another significant prime number relation. The 186th prime number is 1109, which has this 119 digits. 1109 is the Latin gematria of the year 1984. 1984, summing to 1109. In fact, the date written 1109 on the calendar is November 9th, which also equals 1109 in that same cipher. 1984 is the year that Cirque du Soleil was founded. It's also the birth year of Trump's VP pick, J.D. Vance. In fact, when Cirque du Soleil was founded, that was the first day of Donald Trump's 1984th week since he was born. The name of the shooter and Butler, Pennsylvania, both matching 1984 in the base methods as well. So back to this 119, as we will see, is so relevant here. The number connecting Eminem to Donald. This weekend's attempt was 11 months and 6 days before the anniversary of the Vegas attempt. The shooter was from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, which has gematria of 119. Gaius Julius Caesar, his full name, 119. Trump born 11 months and 9 days after the Secret Service's anniversary. And now the attempted assassination, was 116 days before Election Day. The first attempt in Las Vegas was 100 months and 19 days before Election Day this year. So just a lot of 119 here, but it goes on. The day after Trump's rally, we learned that an NFL player for the Ravens, he won a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens, dead at the age of 40. His name was Jacoby Jones, which equals 119. His middle name was Rashid, so his name was Jacoby Rashid Jones. And this made me think of the actress Rashida Jones, who's 100 months and 16 days older than Jacoby. On the same day that Trump was shot at, Richard Simmons passed away. And notice how his full name, Milton Teagle Richard Simmons, equals 911. Earlier this year, on January 19th, or 119, a movie about Richard Simmons premiered. And that movie starred Pauly Shore, whose full name with his nickname, just like Richard Simmons, Paul Montgomery Pauly Shore, equals 119. The two assassination attempts on Donald Trump, the one in Vegas and the one in Pennsylvania, these were separated by exactly 421 weeks. 421, like April 21st, 421. That's the birthday of the Queen, Queen Elizabeth. Trump was shot 1 year, 10 months, and 6 days after the Queen died, and 11 weeks and 6 days after her birthday. And this is significant because 9/11 is the Gematria of divine feminine, which was represented by the Queen while she was alive. The phrases division and Tisha B'Av, the ancient holiday of the Jewish commemoration of the two temples, both 9/11. So this is all about the divine feminine code. But check this out. In Gematria, the phrase 8 years later also sums to 9/11. And these two assassination attempts were separated by 8 years on the calendar. 8 years later, Gematria of 9/11. So this brings us to the divine feminine code that's played out through the world of media this past week. Katy Perry, one of these New World Order musicians, released a video called Woman's World. And in that video, one of her dancers here has feminine divine on her shirt. And Katy Perry holding the symbol of the divine feminine, the glyph for Venus in the video. Shout out to Cody for his work on this. His channel's linked below, as always. And how interesting, considering that in this incident with Trump, he was surrounded by female Secret Service agents. You know, one of them was carrying him down the steps. I mean, I'm sorry, I love my women, but is this really who you want protecting you in a time of danger? These are not the jobs for women. I'm sorry. You know, maybe when it comes to the intelligence side of it. But when it comes to getting bodies out there protecting the president, send me some beefy dudes instead. Please don't take that clip out of context. Anyway, notice how the name of the shooter, Crooks, sums to 81 and 81 in the ordinal methods, right? Crooks. 81 and 81. This was a roof sniper equaling 810 in both Sumerian ciphers. The planet Venus sums to 81. So does the name Lawrence, like Jennifer Lawrence, the star of the Hunger Games. Trump now in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which equals 81. 81 also the Gematria of the president in the Hunger Games, Coriolanus Snow, with a double 81. The album that this song came from is called 143. That record will come out on September 20th. September 20th would be the 21st birthday of the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, who was born on September 20th. Katy Perry's record will come out 122 days after 522. Notice how bread and circus equals 122 and 522. And 522, May 22nd, is the 143rd day of the year. And 143, the name of the Katy Perry record. One year and 43 weeks. That's how long the female director of the Secret Service was in office on the date Trump was fired at. And remember, the phrase, I love you, is made up of 1, then 4, then 3 letters. 143. Last month, President Snow of the Hunger Games passed away, Donald Sutherland. And when Sutherland died, Donald Trump was exactly 1,043 sidereal months old. a sidereal month measuring the orbit of the moon. 27 days to orbit the Earth. And check out the frickin' gematria of President Coriolanus Snow in Standard and Latin. President Coriolanus Snow equals 1946 and 2016. Well, Donald Trump was born in 1946 and won the 2016 election. Trump even born 20 years and 16 days after Mike Tyson, right? The whole ear injury angle. You gotta love it. The name Trump equals 88. Donald J. Trump equals 888. Well, Sutherland was 88 years old when he died. In fact, he was 11 months and 4 days after his birthday. Why is that significant? His full name, Donald McNichol Sutherland, has gematria of 114 and 1140. Donald Trump was born 10 years, 10 months, and 4 weeks exactly after Donald Sutherland, 114. When the Hunger Games first came out, it was during Brown Lunation, 1104, 114. Donald Trump was born 4,110 days after his business partner, Phil Ruffin. Ruffin born 4 months and 4 days before Sutherland. But look at this. President Coriolanus Snow also has matching 613 gematria with Hunger Games. And 613 is the 112th prime number. Well, Donald equals 112. And he was shot 112 days after the anniversary of this film. Divine Feminine equals 911. Katy Perry's record will be released 1 month and 16 days before Election Day. Just like how Trump was shot 116 days before that same date. Now, 9/11 was the date of the terror attacks in the year 2001. Donald Trump was 2001 weeks old when Katy Perry was born. So I pointed out how 8 years later equals 9/11. Well, this brings us to the big riddle with the planet Venus. Because every 8 Earth years, Venus orbits the sun 13 times. This is pretty much exact. If you go forward 8 years from any date, you will find that it equates to exactly 13 Venusian years. 8 years on Earth, 13 for Venus. A 13-8 ratio. In the alphabetic order, Divine Feminine and Donald Trump both equal 138. This is called the Venus Rose. Both Venus Rose and Rose of Venus equal 138. Katy Perry was born on a date with 138 and 119 numerology. And her first stage name, Katie Hudson, equals 138. When President Snow of the Hunger Games died, check out Donald Trump's age. 78 years and 7 days. Well, 787 is the 138th prime number. And if you look at the total number of days in his age, you get the 138th pentagonal number. So you get a double 138 connection with President Snow. Consider how the star of the Hunger Games, Jennifer Lawrence, she was born on the date leaving 138 days in the year. So Jennifer Lawrence releases Bread and Roses as part of this whole bread and circus theme. There is a huge Rose theme going on as well, however. And in the Hunger Games, her sister, spoiler alert, I guess, her sister Primrose is killed, I think, in the last movie of the Hunger Games. And this symbolism is carried by President Snow, who is always wearing a rose on his vest there. The rose, like the Venus rose. Donald Trump, by the way, rose after being shot so he could play to the crowd. Now, this film, Bread and Roses, with Jennifer Lawrence, is about the struggles of women in Afghanistan. And Afghanistan sums to 303. Well, Jennifer Lawrence was born exactly 303 weeks after Katy Perry. And on the date Trump was fired at, she was 33 years, 333 days old. Bread and Roses came out during Brown Lunation 1255. Donald Sutherland also dead during that same lunation. Notice how Rose equals 255, just like assassination attempt. And wouldn't you know, look at the actress or celebrity they showed out here to test the sound system at the Republican National Convention. Amber Rose. Is this even a real person? She doesn't look alive to me. All right, maybe I'm going crazy. Notice how the Rose has matching 225 Gematria with Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the host of the convention. Rose also equals 57, which is the birth numerology of Katy Perry. Also born on the date leaving 67 days in the year, matching female. This date, the 25th of October, also represents the 54th prime number. 251, the 54th prime, Venus and love both summing to 54. All right, the next part I want to talk about is a little bit more on this head wound riddle from the book of Revelation and how it played out through WWE. Because we recently had the mock assassination of a pro wrestler named Chad Gable. On June 17th, the anniversary, or I'm sorry, it wasn't the anniversary, but it was the same city, this episode of Raw, that the tribute episode for Chris Benoit was held. Corpus Christi, Body of Christ. And we got the debut of the Wyatt Six. And they attacked a number of wrestlers backstage. And look at this wound they put on Chad Gable. I mean, doesn't it look like he's been shot? Why is this in a pro wrestling arena? It looks like a bullet wound. Well, this is easy to explain. Trying to find something new here that I didn't already cover in the slides. All right. So when you take the verse of Revelation, Revelation 13:3, and write it out, including the verse and numbers in the alphabetic order, it sums to 1223, which is the Latin value of Jesuit order, 1223. 1223 is the 200th prime number. Now, this is a number that connects Trump to Caesar. Caesar equals 200. And Trump was born on the date leaving 200 days in the year. In reverse, Chad Gable equals 200. Chad Gable was 34 weeks before his birthday on Saturday. And in reduction, Chad Gable equals 34. More significant is that Chad Gable was 14,008 days old. This is the gematria that Donald J. Trump shares with Marcus Brutus. 14,008 days. And then the very next episode of Raw, Chad Gable partners up with two guys named Julius and Brutus. I mean, are you kidding me? Brutus, this is unreal. How obvious they're being with this mockery. I mean, if you still believe what's going on in the media, I don't know what to tell you, man. They are making fun of you so hard, and it gets worse every day. Chad Gable has birth numerology of 116. The upside down 9/11. And for Trump's first assassination attempt in 2016, Gable was 11,060 days old. The attempt on Trump's life was 1,191 weeks after 9/11. Chad Gable was 5,666 days old on that date. You got to appreciate that, the 666. But more significant is that Chad Gable was exactly 2,001 weeks old when Trump was shot this weekend. 2001. Remember, that's the number that connects Trump to Katy Perry. Born 2001 weeks apart. Man, there's so much to unpack here. Chad Gable was, quote, assassinated on WWE television 6,203 days after Chris Benoit was found dead. Chris, or Christopher, right? Body of Christ, Corpus Christi, that's where Raw was held. Both of these nights. Well, 6,203 days is the length of time between the death of Fred Trump, Donald's father, and the Las Vegas attempt. And in Satanic Gematria, Las Vegas, Nevada equals 623. Well, the very next verse of Revelation, Revelation 13:4, has Gematria of 623. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? 623. That verse is also 1,670 in the alphabetic order. And that's the number of weeks between the founding of Cirque du Soleil and the assassination attempt at the Cirque du Soleil Theater, called Mystère, which sums to 167. Thomas Crooks shooting Trump in Butler, 167. Also consider how this happened in the 7th month of the year 24. And on the date 7/24, the discovery of Uranus turns 88,888 days old, syncing up with Trump. There's actually a deeper riddle here that I don't want to get too deep into because we're already past an hour on this video. But Uranus has matching 611 gematria with assassination and brotherhood of death. So I think it's kind of interesting because, you know, like I said, 724, like number of the beast, the brotherhood of death, Jesuits, Great American Eclipse, all with this gematria. So we knew that the 7th month of the year 24 was huge for Trump. And it's almost unbelievable how well it manifested with what we were picking up on. And this is why I think, you know, if we were doing these decodes 25 years ago, if I was, you know, an adult back then and not some bumbling high school idiot, we would have probably figured out the whole 9/11 thing before it happened. And when it comes to this shooting, I mean, it looks like we did. Maybe not the exact date, but for the convention. The last part of this riddle I want to talk about in this video, and maybe I'll do a follow-up on more of this, but remember, the blog is linked down below, so if you want to learn more about the numerology and some of the important riddles that go into this, check the links below. I'll try and link every post I made, but there's always more. These decodes never truly end. And for me, you know, I went live this morning. I think I set this time up like almost a full day in advance because if I didn't, this would have taken me forever. I would have gone hours. But what I want to leave you with is the big Saros 136 riddle that's involved here. Now, I've been talking about Solar Saros 136 and the Eclipse code for a long time, but I've been talking about it a lot recently. Particularly this video, where I talk about Donald Trump's interview by Logan Paul, a WWE wrestler. Logan Paul is all synced up with this Saros series. And then in my last video on the death of Elf actor Benji Gregory, I talk about the number 136 at length in regards to that Saros series. And as it turns out, this is all pointing to the event in Butler this weekend. So just to quickly recap, Saros 136 began in the year 1360, and in the Western Hemisphere, the date was 13/6. However, it was June 14th in most parts of the world, and June 14th is the birthday of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was born exactly, check this out. Trump was born exactly 586 years after the Eclipse, or I'm sorry, this Saros series started. Check out The Hunger Games in Latin, 586. Very similar to Donald Trump, 589. All right, so I covered a lot of this, but notice how Butler, Pennsylvania sums to 293 in standard. Donald J. Trump, 293, caps mixed. Coronavirus pandemic equals 293. On the date leaving 293 days in the year, back in 2020, Trump declared a national emergency for the coronavirus pandemic. That was on the 13th of March, or 1303. And consider how coronavirus equals 1303. Now, the last solar eclipse from Saros 136 passed over the city of Wuhan, China. And of course, Wuhan, China is where coronavirus is said to have originated. This eclipse back in 2009. And remember, eclipses from the same Saros occur only every 18 years. So we'll have another one coming up in 2027, but the last one was over Wuhan. And the corona is the name of the atmosphere of the sun, which is only visible during an eclipse. So March 13th, the anniversary of the discovery of Uranus, also the date that Pope Francis took over the Catholic Church in the year 2013. So check this out. From the date that Pope Francis took over in Italy to the date of the Trump shooting was exactly 136 months. Francis is the first member of the Jesuits to become the Pope. The Jesuits equals 136. And the Jesuits were founded just 3 days before an eclipse from Saros 136. 3 days, like the time it takes Jesus to rise from the tomb. Saturday's event was also 13 weeks and 6 days after this year's total eclipse, which went over the United States. It was also 13 weeks and 6 days after the fall of the Roman Empire, when Roman Reigns lost the WWE Championship. The Secret Service was 55,136 days old for its failure. The Secret Service was also 136 years old for the 9/11 attacks. The 9/11 attacks fell exactly 136 sidereal months after the middle eclipse of Saros 136, which happened in the year 1991. And that's what my whole last video is about. Because Shelley Duvall, dead on the anniversary of the middle eclipse, her death connected to Benji Gregory, whose death was published on July 11th, the anniversary of this eclipse. And then when Trump is shot, we learn about the death of Milton Teagle Simmons, right? Richard Simmons' real name. Milton Teagle Simmons equals 1036. And recently, he was played in a movie by Paul Montgomery Shore, the comedian. His name equals 1306. In the Hunger Games, the nation is called Panem, or bread. Panem equals 136. And again, the Hunger Games equals 586. Donald Trump born exactly 586 years after the start of Saros 136. Donald Trump has matching 589 Gematria with Declaration of Independence. And measuring from the original Independence Day in 1776 to the shooting of Donald Trump was 90,589 days. So the next eclipse from Saros 136 is in 2027. Trump was shot 1,116 days before that eclipse. Francis became the Pope during Brown Lunation 1116. This is, of course, a number connected to 666. There's a nice moon riddle there with the shooter's name in trigonal. The Pope had also been in office for exactly 11 years and 4 months. We talked a little bit about the 411, right? Trump card, Trump, and Trump rally all equaling 114. The theater back in Vegas for Cirque du Soleil was called Mystère, which equals 1140. Its first show was on Christmas, which equals 411. Just like Assassin 411. Trump's ear was torn off 1,411 weeks exactly after Evander Holyfield's was torn off. A holy Bible riddle here. Caesar's full name, 411 Fibonacci. Trump's assassin at the Mystère Theater, Michael Sandford, 411. Of course, there's so much more here. But I'm thinking about leaving it where I just left it. I'll go ahead and link these posts below down in the description. You should be able to already find the video I made almost 2 weeks ago with me and Cody explaining the assassination riddle with Trump connected to the convention. So it truly is amazing stuff that we're uncovering. Showing once and for all that the mainstream media, the news as we know it, bread and circus, just pony tricks for the masses, keeping everybody placated. And sometimes I wonder too, like, I've spent so much time on these decodes, it's almost as if this is placating me as well. But my take on it is that too few people understand the gravity of these lies. A lot of people are willing to admit there's conspiracies, but very few people are willing to admit the depth of how that goes. And the fact that we're able to pick up on this numerology before it even happens. You know, we didn't make this video because the political climate was amping up. We made it because we were paying attention to what was going on and the likelihood of this happening. So definitely check that video out if you missed it, because there's so much worth finding how it all connects to JFK, the winner of the 44th election, who was born on the anniversary of Wisconsin, where this week's convention is being held. It all comes together way, way too well. So thanks to everybody for tuning in to this live stream. Whether you're watching it live or archived, do feel free to like, share, subscribe, as YouTube will clearly not be helping spread this video on their own accord. Most of these video channels, I don't think Rumble is, but most of them are all about suppressing this content. Well, maybe Rumble is. I actually know very little about this platform, other than it's very conservative. But how many commentators over there are willing to call this a scripted event is what I want to know. Probably far too few. So, 25 followers on that channel feels a little bit low. Just like 20,000 does here, but I'm not complaining. We know what we're up against. We know what's going on. So please do keep informing your loved ones, those who are ready to wake up to what we're witnessing. And, yeah. So with that, everyone, peace, love, God bless. Thanks again. Much love to everyone out there. And an especially big thanks for all the support that makes this work and the website possible. Peace, love, God bless. We'll talk to you next time. See ya!